I lost my daughter, my job, and my entire family, all because of one woman's lie. My wife, Melissa, didn't scream, didn't fight, didn't cry when she left. She just packed her bags, took our daughter, Emma, and walked out like she was going to the store. By the next morning, I knew something was wrong. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree, but not with support. It was my brother calling me a monster, my cousins telling me to rot in hell, my own mother blocking my number. Melissa had told them I was abusive. She even showed them photos, fake bruises, doctored messages, and they believed her. Without a single question, my family erased me. At work, I was put on administrative leave. Parents whispered when I walked by. Colleagues avoided eye contact. My reputation was gone. My daughter out of reach, I was branded guilty without a trial, without a voice. But what Melissa didn't know was that she had left behind something far more powerful than her lies, a diary hidden deep inside her vanity. And in those pages, the truth that would burn her world to the ground. If you've ever been betrayed by the people you love the most, if you've ever had to prove your innocence when no one wanted to hear it, then don't go anywhere. This story isn't just about revenge, it's about reclaiming your truth. Stay with me. Subscribe for more great stories. For most of my life, I thought I had it pretty good. I wasn't rich, but I had stability. A teaching job, I loved a decent home in Portland, and a family that stuck together through thick and thin Sunday dinners, birthday, barbecues, holidays that were always loud and chaotic, but full of love. I wasn't just close to my immediate family, my parents, my younger brother Greg, my cousins. I was part of the glue that held us together. So when I met Melissa at a charity event one summer, and she laughed at one of my terrible puns, it felt like life was giving me a new kind of gift. She was beautiful, witty, confident, the kind of person who lit up every room she entered. She told me she was a part-time fitness coach and trying to grow a wellness brand online. Back then, her social media presence was modest, maybe a few thousand followers. I didn't think much of it. What I did think about was how easily she fit into my life. She charmed my parents, brought homemade scones to family brunches, and never forgot a birthday. Even my tough as nails Aunt Debbie once whispered to me, "You did good, Robbie." We got married a year later, and a year after that, Emma was born. Those first few years were blissful, messy, exhausting, but full of joy. We took hikes as a family, made pillow forts in the living room, and posted silly little dance videos online, mostly for fun. But slowly, Melissa's hobby turned into something more. Her follower count began to explode. Brand deals started coming in supplements, skincare, parenting gear. She was always on her phone, always curating, always on. I was proud of her at first, but somewhere along the line, she stopped being present. She started speaking to Emma in captions. Say that again for the vlogs. Sweetie family dinners turned into content shoots. Even arguments became opportunities. At one point, I remember saying, "Can we just be a family without needing to film everything?" She looked at me like I had slapped her. "That's easy for you to say. You have your career, this is mine." It wasn't a fight, but it was the first crack over time. I started noticing other shifts. Late nights scrolling with the screen turned away from me. Phone calls that ended as soon as I walked into the room. New clothes, new perfume, new passwords. Still, I didn't suspect anything huge. I thought maybe she was just stressed, trying to keep up with the algorithm and maintain this picture-perfect image. I offered to help with more housework, more parenting duties, anything to ease the pressure. But instead of gratitude, I got distance. She started sleeping in the guest room just to get better rest. Emma began spending more time at her grandma's house for her routine. Looking back, it's clear she was setting the stage. I didn't know it then, but she was laying breadcrumbs. Not for me, but for everyone else. She'd post vague captions like, "Some things aren't always as perfect as they look." Or, "When you're healing from trauma, protect your peace." I thought she was just being dramatic for clicks. I didn't realize she was soft launching a narrative that would soon become my personal hell. The day she left, there was no argument, no final straw, just a note on the kitchen counter. "Please don't contact me, Emma, and I need space. My lawyer will be in touch." My hands shook as I read it. I called her, no answer, texted nothing. I drove to her mother's house. Emma's bike was in the driveway. Melissa's car was gone. I came back home to silence. And then the messages started. First Greg, then my cousin Tara, then Mom. And just like that, I stopped being Robert, the loving husband and father. I became Robert, the abuser, all without a chance to speak. The first text was from my cousin Tara. You disgust me. I hope you rot in jail for what you did to her. To Emma, then came Greg, my brother, the one who stood beside me at my wedding, who once helped me move a couch in the pouring rain without complaint. Don't even think about showing your face at Mom and Dad's again. I didn't even understand what was happening. Then one by one, they unfollowed me on social media, blocked my number, uninvited me from my niece's birthday party. It was like someone flipped a switch and decided I no longer existed. Still reeling, I opened Instagram. Melissa's page was public. There it was, a photo of her and Emma holding hands on a park bench, captioned "Healing After Years of Silence." Sometimes the ones who are supposed to protect us are the ones who hurt us the most. We're safe now. Survivors. Truth matters. The comment section was flooded with support. You're so brave, I always sensed something was off about him. Stay strong for your daughter. One comment buried deep in the thread asked, What happened? Melissa replied. I wish I could tell you everything, but there are legal reasons I can't. Just know we've been through hell. No names. No specific claims, just vague enough to let people fill in the blanks, and they did. Within hours, I got a call from the school principal, Robert. I need to see you in my office. When I walked in, there was a folder already on her desk. We received an anonymous email. She said it includes photos and a statement accusing you of physical and emotional abuse toward your wife and child. I stared at her. That's not true. She didn't look convinced. I'm placing you on administrative leave while we investigate. I sat in my car for over an hour that afternoon. I didn't start the engine, didn't cry, didn't scream, just stared. How could 8 years of being a loyal husband and father be wiped out in a single weekend? Back home, the silence was deafening. The fridge still had Emma's drawings taped to it. Her little unicorn hairbrush still sat on the bathroom sink. But the life gone. I reached out to Greg again. This time he answered. Greg, you know me. You know I would never. He cut me off. Melissa showed us the pictures, Rob. What pictures? He paused. Bruises on her arms, her back, and Emma. My throat tightened. Those aren't real. I've never laid a hand on them. You always were good at hiding things, he said coldly. I just didn't realize how good. He hung up. I dropped my phone and sat down on the floor. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, a manila envelope was slid under my front door. Inside, a list of Melissa's demands through her attorney. She was filing for full custody, claiming abuse, demanding sole possession of the house until the hearing. I barely made it to the bathroom before I threw up. At this point, even the neighbors were looking at me differently. A few mothers on our block stopped waving. One of them hurried her child indoors when she saw me walking to the mailbox. It was surreal, like I had stepped into someone else's nightmare, and I couldn't wake up. That week, I tried contacting Melissa directly. No answer. I tried going to her mother's house to see Emma. The police were called. The restraining order came 2 days later. There I was alone in a house that used to be filled with laughter and crayons and piano practice, now stripped of color, of sound, of purpose. And the worst part, there wasn't a damn thing I could do to convince anyone I was innocent. Because when someone paints you as a monster, every word you say just sounds like a growl. There's a strange kind of silence that lives in a house after a child is taken from it. It's not just quiet, it's hollow. Like every wall remembers the laughter that used to bounce off it and now mourns its absence. I stopped using the kitchen, stopped watching TV. Every corner of the house reminded me of Emma. Her bedtime stories, her cereal bowl with the chipped rim, the way she'd sneak into our bed on stormy nights. I started sleeping on the couch, not because the bed was too big without Melissa, but because her pillow still smelled like her perfume. And I hated that I missed her. Even after what she'd done, I was drowning, and I knew it. The only thing keeping me upright was routine. Every day I made a pot of coffee I barely drank. Every day I checked my email hoping for news from my lawyer. Every day I walked past Emma's room and paused at the door, but I never went in. Then came the request from Melissa's attorney, a list of items she wanted me to pack and leave outside the front porch. Clothes, jewelry, makeup, a few boxes from her Vanity. I should have said no. I should have made her come and get them herself, but I was too tired to fight. So I opened her vanity drawers, sorting through the chaos of mascara wands and old receipts. Most of it was meaningless until I opened the bottom drawer and noticed it didn't go back as far as it should have. I tugged, it caught, then popped loose. Behind it, tucked into the false back, was a leather-bound journal, Melissa's. It had her handwriting, her initials on the first page, dated nearly a year ago. I should have closed it. Should have respected her privacy, despite everything. But something in me, the part that hadn't slept in days, that hadn't seen his daughter, that had been slandered, exiled, and condemned, needed to know. So I opened it, and within the first 5 pages, my world split open. Eric says if I leave Robert and get full custody, he'll invest in my wellness brand. He has over 300K followers. Imagine the reach. Robert still doesn't suspect anything. I think I'll go with the emotional abuse narrative first. Keep it vague, keep it safe. Tried the bruise makeup again today. Getting better at contouring, it'll read well on camera. My hands trembled as I flipped page after page. She had planned it, documented it, perfected it. Told his mom I was scared. Cried on the phone, hooked. Greg saw the photos, took the bait. This is working. I couldn't breathe. My knees gave out, and I sat there on the floor of what used to be our bedroom, staring at the pages like they were on fire. She didn't just lie. She orchestrated a smear campaign against her own husband, the father of her child. And the worst part, it had worked. She'd fooled everyone, made me into a monster, and stolen my daughter in the process. But now, I had the truth in my hands. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel powerless. I felt clarity. Melissa thought she'd buried her secrets behind a mirror and a fake drawer. But secrets don't stay buried. And if she wanted war, she just gave me the weapons. I sat at the kitchen table all night. The journal lay open in front of me like a loaded gun. Every sentence I reread felt like another slap. But somewhere between the disbelief and the rage, a thought began to form. She left this behind. She made a record of her crimes, and now that I had it, I wasn't going to waste it on anger. I was going to use it. First thing that morning, I scanned every single page, front and back. I uploaded them to a secure cloud folder, backed them up to an external hard drive, and even printed a full set just in case. Then I called someone I hadn't spoken to in over a decade. Deborah Mays. She used to be a private investigator before semi-retiring to teach criminology night classes at a local college. We had worked together on a community case years ago, back when I helped research wrongful convictions for my history students. When I told her what was happening, she didn't hesitate. "Bring the diary," she said, "and any communications you have with her." Within 48 hours, Deborah had uncovered more than I ever imagined. Melissa had been in a relationship with Eric Weller, one of her most vocal Instagram followers, for nearly a year. He was a wellness entrepreneur, which basically meant he had more ego than income, but just enough money to make promises. Deborah tracked messages from a burner account Melissa used, confirming their affair, their travel plans, and even drafts of future Instagram posts. But the nail in the coffin, Deborah found an old makeup tutorial Melissa had posted over a year ago. It was a Halloween-themed reel titled "How to Make Realistic Bruises with Just 3 Products," and the technique identical to the bruises shown in the photos Melissa had used to frame me. Deborah compiled it all into a comprehensive dossier timeline of events, screenshots of incriminating messages, side-by-side photo analysis, the full scanned diary, and a comparison video showing Melissa's own makeup tutorial versus her evidence. Armed with that, I called my lawyer, Rick Daniels. Rick was blunt, brilliant, and not a fan of drama, but when he read through the evidence, his face actually turned red. "This is a full-blown setup, and not just against you. It's court fraud, defamation, and parental alienation." He wasted no time. Within 72 hours, Rick filed 2 emergency motions, immediate custody hearing on the grounds of fabricated abuse and psychological manipulation, a defamation suit naming Melissa personally for reputational and financial damages. The judge granted a temporary hearing within 5 days. When we walked into that courtroom, I expected Melissa to be calm, collected, smug, but she looked rattled. Maybe it was the fact that Greg was sitting behind me this time. Maybe it was the manila folder in Rick's hands. Melissa's lawyer began. with the usual speech protecting women, trauma victimhood. But then Rick stood up. He walked to the center of the room and calmly handed the judge a USB drive. Your Honor, the following documents and media contain compelling evidence that not only was my client falsely accused of abuse, but that Ms. Caldwell fabricated evidence and engaged in a coordinated campaign of slander. He said it like it was routine. It wasn't. Melissa's face turned pale as the judge clicked through images on her screen. Rick narrated page 17 of the journal. Ms. Caldwell outlines her intent to create injuries using makeup. Page 38, she details how she'll manipulate Robert's brother Greg. Page 53 mentions financial incentives promised by a third party, Eric Weller. Then he played the makeup video. Silence. Melissa's lawyer tried to object, but the judge shut him down. Do you deny this is your video, she asked. Melissa stammered. It was just for fun. It wasn't related. Then Rick read aloud a text Deborah had found. Used the bruising trick from last year's Halloween reel. Worked like a charm. Melissa's shoulders slumped. The judge didn't even flinch. Ms. Caldwell, she said, I'm issuing a court order for full custody to be transferred to Mr. Caldwell effective immediately. Further, you are instructed to issue a public statement retracting the abuse allegations within 72 hours. Melissa covered her face with her hands. No more lies, no more filters. Just the truth. Raw, documented, and undeniable. And as I walked out of that courtroom with my daughter's future secured, I didn't feel victory. I felt relief. The war wasn't over, but for the first time since this nightmare began, I had won a battle. When the gavel struck wood, it felt like thunder in my chest. Full custody. Emergency retraction, public record cleared. Melissa didn't even look at me as the judge dismissed us. She kept her eyes down, shoulders hunched, her carefully curated image unraveling like cheap thread. Greg reached over and put a hand on my shoulder. His face was tight, ashamed. I should have known better. He whispered, I'm sorry, Rob, I really am. I didn't say anything right away. I didn't need to, because in that moment I knew nothing. He could say would undo the pain, but it was a start. We walked out of the courthouse together into a wall of camera flashes. Some local news station had caught wind of the case. I saw a boom mic in the corner of my eye. A reporter called out, Robert, do you have anything to say to your followers? To your family. I held up the folder. The truth doesn't need to shout, it just needs to survive. That night I picked up Emma from Melissa's mother's house. She ran into my arms so fast I nearly lost my balance. Daddy, she cried, are you coming back home? No, sweetheart, I said, choking back tears. We are. She hadn't known the full story. Melissa's mom had tried to keep her away from the online noise, but kids aren't dumb. She knew something was wrong. And now holding her, I promised myself she would never feel that fear again. We went back to our home together, our real home. I made grilled cheese for dinner the way she liked it, cut into hearts. She played her favorite song on the little keyboard in her room while I stood in the doorway watching her fingers dance. It was the same song she used to play before Melissa took her away, but this time it sounded like healing. The next few days brought a wave of apologies, cousins, aunts, even my own mother, who called sobbing, saying she'd been blinded by performance. I let them speak. I let them cry. Some of them I forgave, others. Not yet, because while the truth had finally surfaced, the damage it left behind was deep. My job wasn't waiting for me. The school board, while relieved at the court outcome, insisted they needed to rebuild community trust. They offered me a quiet resignation or an unpaid extended leave. I chose the latter. I needed the time with Emma anyway. We spent our mornings at the park, afternoons baking messy cupcakes, evenings drawing pictures of dragons and heroes, her favorite new theme. She always made the dragon look like me. I made you strong, she said one night, because you saved me. Meanwhile, Melissa posted a shaky apology video online. Eyes red background, blurred comments turned off. I made mistakes, terrible ones. I let ambition cloud my judgment and hurt the people I love. I'm sorry to Robert, to my daughter, to everyone who believed in me. It was gone within a week. Her followers dropped by the thousands. Sponsorships disappeared. Brand deals revoked. Turns out authenticity can't be faked forever. But none of that mattered to me anymore. Because Melissa losing her platform didn't undo what she'd done. The real victory wasn't revenge, it was restoration. Getting my daughter back, finding peace in silence again, rebuilding relationships, but only the ones worth rebuilding. One night, weeks after the court ruling, Emma crawled into my bed during a thunderstorm, Daddy. She whispered, "Yeah, is Mommy mad at us?" I thought for a long time before answering. "No," I said. "She's sad, but that's not your fault. And it's not mine either." She curled into my side, small and warm and safe. And as the thunder rolled outside, I realized something. This story had started with silence, the kind that felt like loss. But now, silence meant peace. And I'd take that any day. A year later, the house feels like home again. The silence that once screamed at me now wraps around us like a warm blanket. Emma has redecorated her room with space posters and glow-in-the-dark stars. She's into astronomy now. Says she wants to be a girl who finds galaxies. I tell her every night, "You already are, kiddo." As for me, I never went back to teaching. Not because I couldn't, but because I realized I had something more important to build a life that wasn't about proving my worth to the world. I started tutoring kids part-time, low-income families, kids who'd been through tough times. It's quiet work, meaningful. Greg and I talk again, slowly, carefully. He still carries guilt in his eyes, but I can see he's trying. Some bridges you rebuild one plank at a time, others you let burn. I haven't spoken to Melissa since the final custody hearing. She moved to another city. Her online presence faded into obscurity. Every so often, someone sends me a link to some post of hers, rambling apologies, new ventures, half-hearted rebrands. I delete them because I don't need to see who she's pretending to be. Now I know who she really was, and I know who I became because of it. There's a quote I came across recently. Sometimes the people you take a bullet for are the ones behind the trigger. But here's the thing. They never tell you. Even if you get shot, you can still stand up, still walk forward, still heal, and if you're lucky, you'll have a little hand in yours guiding the way. What did you think of this story? If you were in Robert's shoes, how would you have handled it? Let me know where you're watching from in the comments, and if you support Robert, vote number 2. If you think Melissa deserves a second chance, vote number 7. Don't forget to subscribe to Revenge with Chris so you never miss a powerful new karma story every single day.